Hello everyone, this is LaVoy Finicum, One Cowboy Stand for Freedom. I want to give you an update. Things are not stalled, things are not slowing down. I was asked to go speak to a meeting with a bunch of ranchers in south central Utah, and I want to let you know that there's a real spirit of freedom burning amongst those cowboys and those ranchers. It was such an honor to rub shoulders with them. Let me tell you what, they are not going to back down. They're tough as nails, and they'll hold their grip. Really proud of them. They'll no longer be pushed around by the BLM and by the Forest Service. And I'm going to attach a little bit of the audio of that meeting. I didn't have it videoed, but there's some audio of it, and I'll attach that to this here. I want to make a couple of points before I do. Going out to you hunters, going out to you campers and you recreationalists, this fight is for you too. Believe me, they've already taken the mineral rights here with stroke of pen, taken all the mineral rights. If they take the grazing rights, believe me, the hunting rights will be next. Access rights are already being taken. Sign down there on the road, Kelly Point, closed. They just did it. No input, no accountability. A bureaucrat can write that law, and it has force and effect of law. Nobody elected that person that wrote that rule. Believe me, do you think, hunters, that they want you to even have a gun, let alone run around here with guns without their permission, their say-so? Wake up. Open up your eyes. Things are moving. America, you got a revolution on your hands. These cowboys, that was a big meeting hall. It was packed from front to back, side to side, standing room only. Had county commissioners there, deputies, sheriff, and they're all standing together. And they're going to stand up for the republic. Let me explain this. This is the sophistry and the deception of the BLM. They say, "Oh, it's not our land." But they say it's our grass, it's our mineral rights. But they'll say it's not our lands, we just manage it. Let me ask you this. If I have a home, a house, and I say this is public house, this is a public house, but I say who can come, who can go, and I get to make all the rules, and I can change the rules at any time that I like, and nobody that comes into my house or into the house can remove me. I'm not under the power of recall. Whose house is it? Well, it's my house. I can call it whatever I want. But if I make the rules, I control it, and I am not under the power of recall, it's my house. This is about saving our republic. This is about saving our country, about saving our Constitution. And here these cowboys are going to stand up, and they're going to say, no, we will uphold the republic. We'll uphold the Constitution. That's what we fought against in the beginning, in the revolution. We didn't have representation. We had taxation without representation. Well, that's exactly what we have here. We have control without representation. It's not the federal government's. That land is not theirs. And they say, yes, it is. It is ours. And the letter they sent me, finding me another $5,000, Mr. Finicum, your cows are eating our grass. Our grass. Their grass. That's how they word it. Our forage. Not mine. It's theirs. And they're fining me $5,000 on top of the other $1,500 because my cows dare to eat their grass. Where did they get it? Did I buy that from them? I did not. That grass is a grazing right. These access rights are access rights. These hunting rights are hunting rights. Remember that I shared with you, they've already gone to the head of the Fish and Game here, Luke Thompson, and told him, go get to Mr. Finicum. Tell him to back down because we're going to take those hunting rights. That's what he said to me. He says, Mr. Finicum, the federal government could take our hunting rights here if you keep doing what you're doing. They're already threatening. Wake up, America. Well, us cowboys aren't going to back down. There might be some cowboys there over on the other side, and some ranchers on the other side. That doesn't matter. I'm not backing down. Clive and Bundy's not backing down. Stanton Gleaves, him and those cowboys up there in San Juan, Wayne County, man, I take my hats off to you guys up there. You guys are tough as nails. It's an honor to be there. And Mr. Obama, Mr. Loretta Lynch, Mr. Neil Cornsey, this is America. You don't own and control this. We defy you saying that you can come in here, make any laws and rules that you want. without representation. Well, it's a beautiful day. Got things to do. Catch you later.
But before we get started with that, there's a guy here that's kind of took a tremendous stand there, LaVoy Finicum, and he'd like to just kind of tell us what put him to where you're at and what goes on. If you'd like to tell us that, LaVoy.
Thank you, Stan. I appreciate that. I'm from the Arizona side of the border, down there and on the strip. Really appreciate the opportunity I have to come up in there and rub shoulders with you ranchers up here. And I believe heaven looks down upon you guys right now, and I don't say that lightly. I think the issues that you guys are facing is not really an issue about cows and grass and grazing. I really believe the real issue is about freedom, and about the freedom that is vouchsafed in the Constitution. And so, when a lot of us are aware of Clive Bundy, his stand, and the things that he's done, and a lot of you are aware of the efforts that are being made by the American Land Council with Doug Heaton and Ken Avery and stuff, and sometimes there tends to be a little bit of division. I'm trying to get to the same end. Come on in. Can we get some room for these cowboys here? Anyway, let me kind of bring you up to speed exactly where I'm at and what I've done on my ranch and my range. Any of you here kind of follow just a little bit of what I've been doing? Okay, there's a few of you that have been watching that. And what I've done is I've actually, after the Bundy standoff, I'm going to back up just a little bit more. You need to understand the power of example, of your examples. You might be few, but I've watched Clive and Bundy for a long time. He never knew me for a long time. I was over on the Arizona side of the border out there on the strip. He was down there in Mesquite and Bunkerville and stuff. And I knew that the fight he's had with the BLM for a long time. Had a mutual friend, close friend named David Johnson. And he finally said, when they were trying to put him out of business, he finally picked up the Constitution, studied it, and said, you know what, they don't have right and power to do this. And so he sent a letter to the Solicitor General and said, thank you very much for helping me to manage my ranch. I shall now hereby take full responsibility to manage my ranch, and I hereby cancel all my contracts with the BLM. Now, that letter's significant. At that point, he canceled all the contracts. And as you know, for 10 years, he ranched there without a contract. Tried to pay a production tax to the county there. They took a few checks, and he put a few checks in escrow when they quit taking it. And so for 10 years or more, he ranched there. And he said he was almost to go out of business. They knew just how far to push him to make it difficult for him to ranch. Just kept pushing, kept just a little bit. And he says, my health was failing. I was losing sleep. He says, and once I wrote that letter, and I just started ranching, he says, man, the weight just went off my shoulders. And I didn't worry about him. They fined me $1 million, $2 million, $10 million. It didn't matter. He says, and you know, if I need to do a little range improvement, I did a little range improvement. And he says, my health came back. And for 10 years, I ranched just fine until they had the Bundy standoff. When I saw that happening, I walked across. I was in a church meeting, and the brand inspector just happened to let it drop. He said, oh, yeah, they're starting to gather Cliven's cows. And I said, what are they doing? He says, and so I left the meeting and walked across the road to David Johnson. I said, David, he says, I hear they're gathering Cliven's cows. He said, yeah. I said, well, what are we going to do? And I didn't know anybody was going to come. There was nobody down there. He says, well, since we get our horses go down there, we might not come back. He says, I know. I says, but we're going to just let him stay down by himself. Well, you know how it turned out. We went down there. Everybody went down there. Some of you went down there. And he carried the day. And so that example of one man standing had a big impact upon me, because I'd read the Constitution, but I'd never really studied it. And when I got down there, I had to take a look at it, and they began to teach. And they looked at Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. This is the article and the clause that he stands on. And I'll read it to you. Now it says, this is the land which the federal government can own. And there's going to be a division here, and we'll get to that here in the opinion here. It says, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such districts not exceeding 10 square miles. And we know that that is what? Washington, D.C. So Washington, D.C. is a legally owned land by the federal government. Says, may become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erections of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. This is the land that the federal government can own and control. Now think about it. Is that not the intent of our founding fathers? To eliminate a centralized power? Isn't that what they fought against? Is that not the intent of this document? To keep a centralization of federal power. And so that's it. That's all they can own. And remember, they must purchase it by the consent of the legislature of the states. So, the lands that the federal government owns here in Utah, they better be able to show purchase from the state legislature. They cannot take it by eminent domain. And then they say, well, in Nevada gave it to them in order to become a state. It's in the Constitution. Well, there was no state legislature sitting as a territory. There is one other place that the federal government can own and control property. It's called territories. Territories. And that's it. And so that is the supreme law of the land. That is the line upon which I stand. Now there is another camp that fights for ranchers, fights for grazing and stuff. It's the American Land Council. Good people. I've had Doug Heaton in my home. He's tried to explain it. They go over to another article in the section, the property clause, where it says that they do allow them to have control of territories. And it says here, Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting territories and other properties belonging to the United States. They use that clause to say, well, the government does have the right to own and control other properties. In my interpretation, that's not it. What other properties are you referring to? Docks, arsenals, stockyards, or things for the defense of our nation. And that is the intent. Federal government should control and protect our borders, keep commerce regular, not regulate every aspect of commerce, between the state and just a few other narrowly defined things. Now we know that they control all 1/3 of our nation. And it's gone to the Supreme Court, and they say we have exclusive legislative power whatsoever over 1/3 of the land. Well, I say, we don't own the land. It's your land. It's public land. We just manage it for the people. Let's look about that thought just a little bit. I have a house. I'm going to make my house a public house. It belongs to you, the people. But I am going to make all the rules. I'm going to tell who gets to come and who has to go. And I can change the rules when I want to change the rules. You can ask, but I don't have to listen. And you can't vote me out. Whose house is it? It's my house. Don't get messed up with semantics thinking that, okay, it is public house. No, it is federal land. It is federal property. They have exclusive power whatsoever. It's gone to the Supreme Court. And so you say, well, it's gone to the Supreme Court. Well, that's it. And American Land Council says, well, they do have the right. We're just asking them to please give it to us. That's like a bully going to the schoolyard and asking the bully, please give me my milk money. Well, I might, but I might not. The land is not theirs. It's not theirs. Okay, let's go down one level lower, because we can sometimes get in the weeds here, and I'll start arguing over the points of the Constitution, okay? All right, let's go down to natural law. Natural law is the basis of our Constitution. In England, it's called common law, Magna Carta, stuff like that. What is the first law of nature? First law of nature is the law of self-defense. But our founding fathers put it this way: we hold these truths to be self-evident. It's visible. And so I've talked about how these grazing rights were established. How are they established? How many of you ranchers bought your grazing rights from the federal government, the BLM? None of you. Okay, my grazing rights, I bought it from Ballards. Ballards bought it from the Heatons. Heatons from Mines Graham. And there were Smiths before that. So I'm the fifth one. So how did that grazing right get established in the first place? Okay, this is the word. It is preemptive rights. Or the legal term is prior appropriation. So now if we're going to get confused about who is right in the interpretation of the Constitution, let's go lower to natural law. Remember, Thomas Jefferson said, as he got older, he says, to think that the Supreme Court is the sole arbiter of all things constitutional is a dangerous doctrine and will lead to despotism of an oligarchy. And that's what happened. So let's look at natural rights. We all know about lines. And I've explained this to some people, so it might be redundant. But that's how property rights are established. We all know that when there's a good movie and it's the only theater in town, that we have to stand in line for the box office to open. Or stand in line at the DMV. When I stand in line and I'm first one in line, what have I done? I've established a right. I'm first here. We know about that in school. No cutsies. No cutsies up there. You know? So it's self-evident. This is a natural right. Do we or do we not believe that we have inalienable rights? That rights come to us from God and not man. If rights come to us from God and not man, when I stand here, I have created a right. I'm the first one in line. Now, as long as I use this, or continuous beneficial use, I have it. When the line gets long, it says, man, it's taking a long time, I'm going to go down the street, give me a malt and a hamburger and eat and come back, and the line's really long. What have I done when I stepped out of line? I lost my rights. Okay? And so, and we know about that with fences. You know, if there's a fence line that's on my property, and you know, and we don't use that after 7-10 years, what happens? We lose that, don't we? Because we didn't have continuous beneficial use. The law recognized that. It's a principle recognized in current law. Okay, so I'm standing here, and I've established it, and I've had continuous beneficial use. Say somebody comes in, bigger than me, and he cuts himself in front of me. I can do one or two things. I can step back, mumble and complain, and let him take that. And in so doing, what have I done? I've given up my rights. I didn't defend it. So if I'm a rancher and I'm first in line, I've had continuous beneficial use, the third thing you must do in order to maintain your rights is you must defend it. You must defend it. That's what Bundy did. First in line, continuous beneficial use. You can't have it? Yes, I can. And he defended it. That's natural law. And so sometimes we get worried about court cases. We get worried about, you know, the proper interpretation of the law. Now, the federal government, who is the sole arbiter of this right now? The federal courts, isn't it? And so the federal courts make the rules, adjudicate it. See, if I get in contrary with a range con or a statute, so they'll just write a statute and it becomes law. The problem with the BLM or the federal government in these lands is that they combined all three branches of power in one. Legislative, executive, and judicial. The range con sitting behind the desk, or the area director, writes a statute. Has a force and effect of law. If I get contrary with it, you know, and I get contrary, they can enforce it with federal rangers. Federal law, federal rangers, and then I go to a federal court. All three branches. And who did we elect? Did we elect that district manager? Did we elect that range con? No. So we have no representation over that. This is exactly what we fought over in the Revolution. This is the same thing. This is not about cows. This is not about grass. This is about saving our Constitution, and this is about freedom. Things are perfect for me. The kindest, nicest range cons in the whole BLM work where I work at. Never a lick of problems. They weren't pushing me. They weren't crowding me. I was way below my AUM. My grass looked good and everything. And so they're saying, LaVoy, what are you doing? You know, I had a letter just before all this where he said, Mr. Finicum, we are so grateful to work with such a wonderful producer like you. It's been such a pleasure. And they're saying, you're crazy. Why are you doing what you're doing? It'd be a whole lot cheaper for me, a whole lot less threat of losing things right now if I didn't do what I'm doing. But what about that family that they've done in Bend, Oregon? What about Laney over in New Mexico they took out? What about all of you that have been squeezed? You know, they're not stepping on my toes, so it's okay. I won't worry about you. But when they step on my toes, now I'm going to holler and say, will you help me? So this is not about me being persecuted. You know, after that standoff, you know, I was there, you know, and I recognize some of you that were there too. I had to do some soul searching. If Bundy was right, what was I doing signing my mandatory terms and conditions and paying my grazing fee? By my actions, I was giving power and authority to an entity that I believed in my heart of hearts, and I believe in the intent and letter of the Constitution to be illegal. And so by my actions, I give power to it. And so I had to say, I either need to sit down and shut up and just kind of go with the flow. Things are good for me. Prices are up. Grass is good. Cows are fat. I won't cause waves. Or, if I was going to be consistent with my beliefs, I finally had to do something. So, I wrote a little letter to the the Solicitor General of the United States. One paragraph. I figured Washington, D.C. is a black hole. That letter will get lost for sure. So I send a letter to the Solicitor General. I simply say, thank you very much for helping manage my ranch. I'll no longer need your services. I hereby cancel all contracts between me and the BLM. And thank you very much. And I also will be responsible for my own range improvements. And it didn't get lost. Comes back with the FBI holding it in hand to who? My county sheriff. My county sheriff, and I believe in government, and I believe in the federal government. We need the federal government. We need them to protect our borders, our country, keep commerce regular. And I believe in my county government and my state government. This is the 10th Amendment issue, as well as the body of the Constitution. So I says, I'm going to talk to my county sheriff and just let him know what I'm doing. So I go down there, I talk to him, and I tell him about the letter, and he says, oh, yes. I've seen that letter. The FBI agent with the head of bill and law enforcement sitting right where you're sitting, and handed it to me, and I read it. And they asked, what did you think they asked for? They asked to be deputized.
No.
So they're studying, they're learning from the Bundy thing. They want to cover all their bases. And thank goodness my sheriff says, no, I'm not going to deputize you. And I'm telling you, I don't want you pointing guns at Mr. Finicum. And now, Mr. Finicum, I'm telling you, I don't want you pointing guns at them. I said, well, Mr. McCabe, I appreciate it very much. I have no intent on pointing a gun at anybody that's not pointing a gun at me. The county sheriff is the leading law enforcement. He is hired to protect us in our life, liberty, and property. And I promise you that if county sheriff stands, I promise you citizens from all over this country will stand by them. If we get commissioners and sheriffs that stand, this can be a totally different thing. And I've talked to Phil Lyman. He seems like a good man. But you can't do what Phil Lyman did. And I don't mean to kind of be hard on him, but I'm going to be a little hard on him. He got a little bold after the Bundy standoff, and he says, they closed down our county right away. I'm the county commissioner. I am going to open this up. So they had the re-ride capture rent. Who followed that? Everybody know about that? Re-ride of capture canyon. And so they went down there, and what did they do? They waited, didn't have a confrontation. Then they charged him with what? Conspiracy to commit crime. That's okay. But where did he make his mistake? He made his mistake when he stepped into the federal court. When he steps into the federal court, he says by those actions, yes, you federal government do have the right to sit in judgment upon me and my actions. Dang! He's a county commissioner. He's the government closest to the people. If you had simply said, in fact, I told him this. I said, Phil, I appreciate what you did. But on the day that you're going to be sentenced, if this is what you'll do, You represent your county. That's a county right-of-way. It has had continuous beneficial use. It's established by natural law. It says, you go down there, you rip that gate off with the county loader, you're the county commissioner, and you deposit upon the federal courthouse step and say, I will not comply. At that moment, I promise you, thousands of Americans will come to your side and stand beside you. But he didn't do that. And so who's standing beside him? His family. There's a few people there. But does he have 1,000 people there saying, I'll protect you, I'll defend you right away? He doesn't. Because he buckled when the pressure came in. If you're going to draw a line in the sand, you better be very clear upon that line. And you better count the cost. And I said, Phil, I says, man, you would be such a great example of standing up to the federal government if you defied them. I says, I'll jump my horse in, I'll come up and I'll park at your place, and I'll protect you with my life. And I says, and I won't be alone. I says, people, ranchers, everybody will come across this country and will stand beside you. But this is what I have learned. If you don't stand, nobody can stand with you. God can't stand with you. But once you stand, people will stand with you. God will stand with you. Miracles can be expected. I can't count the hundreds of people that have contacted me since I sent my letter to the Solicitor General saying, thank you, I'm no longer going to, and I'm going to pay a production tax to my county. And hundreds of people say, Mr. Finicum, how can I help? I'll share with you just this one thing. It says, Mr. Finicum, I'm out here in Texas. I'm just a man. My wife is in hospice, but I've made arrangements. If you need me, I can come. And then last week I got another letter. It says, Mr. Finicum, my wife has passed away. I can come anytime you want. Americans are waiting to stand for freedom, to stand for the Constitution. But they can't stand unless you stand. They will stand with you if you stand. But if federal government, BLM, in my belief, loves the American Land Council. Why? Why would I say something like that? Because that's exactly where they want that. Keep it in the legislative arena. Keep it in the judicial arena. Because they will always win. They will always win. Goes to the Supreme Court again, they will win. They are not going to give up 1 acre. And the American Land Council starts from the basis saying, yes, federal government, we recognize that you do have the right to own this land, but you're supposed to dispose of it back to us. And we're now asking you to do that. So they begin from the basis saying, yes, it is yours. Why somebody who has fought so long to gain control of the schoolyard, has all the lunch money, or is he then going to give it to somebody who just asked for it? It's not. It's not going to happen. I told Doug Heaton, I says, Doug, I says, and see, I don't know if you know that, but Ken Avery works for Doug Heaton. I said, Doug, I says, I promise you, they're not going to give you back 1 acre. And remember, what is the deal? We will give you the parks, we will give you the wilderness area, and the monuments. Just give us the rest. I said, Doug, if you win, I still lose. I'm on wilderness, and I'm on monument. Why am I interested in you winning? I mean, besides, you're violating the principle. Is it theirs? If it's theirs, quit complaining, ranchers, and be appreciative of what they give you. When that range com says you need to cut your AUM because I deem, no ability to recall, not voted upon, I deem that you need to cut this down. I just heard the cow, trying to turn it from sheep to cows. No, you can only run so many head, 90 head or 50 head, when they should be running 300 head. It says, I deem that. And if they own that, if the American Land Council is right, quit complaining. Say, thank you for allowing me to run 40 head. Even though I wanted 300, it can run 600. I'm grateful that I have 40. And quit complaining. Because they're going to take it sooner or later. All of it. You need to understand that this fight is also the fight for the hunters. Do you think once they take the grazing rights, which they're trying to do, they're being deceptive, squeezing a little here, squeezing a little there, do you think the hunting rights are going to be long after that? It's not. They're already closing down access. Right there on my ranch, And got a big blue sign out. Kelly Point, closed. November, during the hunting season, it's closed. You can't go out there. Well, who voted on that? They're closing down roads on the Kaibab. My neighbor David Johnson, now they're starting to squeeze him. But I'm okay. If I'm just quiet and I keep my head down, I mind my P's and Q's, I should be okay. So this is about freedom. This is about the Constitution. And I want you to know that I appreciate you guys. See, the states are supposed to interpose, the word is interposition, when a federal government overreaches. When a state fails to do that, it's left to the county and the county sheriff. They are to interpose and place themselves in between the government and the people's property. We hire the county sheriff to protect us in this county, in our life, our liberty, and our property. If the states, the counties fail to do that, who's it left to? The citizens. The citizens. And I want to say another thing. There's a lot of demonization of militia. But I want to tell you, I would not be here today. I'm not part of militia, and I don't intend to be part of militia. But I would not be here today had there not been militia standing behind us at the Bundy thing. No way. They laugh at us. I'd be gone. And stuff. And so I appreciate them. They're willing to sacrifice. Any one of you that stands, people from clear across this nation will travel. They will give up their jobs. The man made arrangements for his wife that was in hospice to come and stand beside me. He wasn't part of the militia. He's just a man, just like you and me. I appreciate you. I love this country. I love those who are willing to stand for freedom. I want my children to someday truly breathe free air. I don't want to hear any more in church, in sacrament, and state conference, somebody getting up and praying, saying, God, thank you for the free country we live in. Goodness gracious. If we think we live in a free country, we're part of the problem. That's all I have to say, and again, I appreciate Chance, whether you agree with me or not. It doesn't matter if anybody stands with me or not. They do, they will. But I will stand on that piece of land until the last cow, my last dime, everything I have is tied up in it. It's my dream. It's a ranch all my life. It took me a long time to get my ranch. My dad had his own. I always wanted to do it, and I stand to lose everything. But it won't be until my last cow's gone, my last dime's gone, and my last drop of blood's gone. I'm going to stand on that little piece of sagebrush flat and say, this is mine. I'm just a little rancher. I'm not a big rancher like many of you, but here I can stand for the Constitution. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. And that's all I have to say.
We got to say we're proud of what you're doing there, LaVoy. I don't know if we'd all read the Constitution and study it. I'm sure we'd all be a lot wiser. I've studied it a little. I've studied it enough to know what you're saying is the truth. I don't know what we need to do as a group. And the last thing I want to do is see another Bundy deal. I was in on that, and all my boys, and I don't want to face them guns again. And and I do want it known that I totally believe the sheriff has all the power he needs in the county, and he also has all the people in the county he can deputize. But if it comes to the point he needs extra help, I don't think it hurts to have a militia there, or you guys there, and I'd like you to, one or both of you, to just stand up and say what you believe in, if you would. This is Colt Reynolds, is it?
Yes, sir. This is a true American right here. This is what all of us hopefully will be when it comes down to it. But this whole BLM thing is legalized extortion, is all it is. It's not. We're not gonna candy coat it. They're stealing from you. And I'm a horse guy, but I'm not a rancher. We had 40 acres, 80 acres. The militia. How many knows what a militia is? Do you have any idea? I've already heard from some stories from a couple of people after they come in here that people were scared to come tonight because of the militia. Does anybody even know what it is? Anybody? By United States Code, Title 10, Chapter 13, Section 311 says that all able-bodied males between the ages of 17 and 45 are in the militia. It doesn't give you a choice. It doesn't say you can be. It says you are. The only difference between you and me is we train. We have a group of people that get together. We work together well, and you don't. That's the only difference. You're in the militia. You're not 45. There's a whole bunch of them in here that's not 45. If you're prior service, if you've been in the military before, you go on a little farther down the United States Code, it says that you're in the militia until you're 63 years old. That's the unorganized militia. It's very clear in there that the organized militia is National Guard, Army, so on and so forth. It's worded different. It's very clear in Arizona. I'm not sure about Utah's statutes and everything. But there's a very clear defining line between unorganized militia and militia. And unorganized and organized. We are not anti-government. We are anti-corruption in government. We have in our bylaws that we will stand with the sheriff, providing his laws or his orders are constitutional, and he recognizes our chain of command. We'll do anything for him. We'll clean toilets. We'll take care of traffic while those guys go out and do other stuff, search and rescue, whatever we can do to help. That's why we're there. That's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. People that are in the militia are cowboys, and they're businessmen, and they're doctors. They're your neighbors. They're people all over this state, all over this country. There's nothing to be scared of. I'm going to tell you right now, we didn't threaten lives. We didn't at Bundy Ranch. We saved lives. The fact that we were there, hundreds of us, kept everything in check. Nobody got hurt. Granted, it was close. It could have been. But I'll tell you one thing. If all that militia hadn't have been there, the outcome would have been much different, I promise you. It would have been so different. Bundy Ranch was a history-changing event. It would have been so different that we probably wouldn't be doing this here today. Because some of you are here because you got the guts to stand from Clive and Bundy and LaVoy Finicum. You're here now because you're starting to question that authority. You're going to say, I will not comply with these unconstitutional, illegal rules. Now, we can do this in such a way that we're not violent. We don't have to be ugly about it. We can write a letter and say, you know what, I appreciate what you've done, but we're gonna handle it from here. Thank you very much. We're done. I will no longer need your services. And I would hope that some of you, by the time you're done tonight, that you'll sit back, pray about it, think about it, talk to your spouses about it, and make that decision to write that letter. We can't stand for you. We can only stand with you. You're going to have to get up there and give, I won't say give us a reason. We have a reason. We're here with the Constitution as a reason. Freedom is a reason. Liberty is all the reason that I need to be up here. And I'm going to tell you, not tooting my horn at all, but I'll tell you what I've done over the last 12 months. I've been to Olympia, Washington, and I stood up there with the Will Not Comply rally, and about 2,500 of us committed probably 6,000 felonies that day by passing guns around because of their private transfer deal. I went back up there for another rally in Yakima, Washington. I've been to Quartzsite, Arizona, and stood with them. I've been to Otero County, New Mexico, and stood with them because I believe in my Constitution. I believe in my country. I believe in my God. I believe that if could you stand upright right now? If you walk out here and don't write that letter and don't stand with LaVoy Finicum and Clive and Bundy, can you face the Founding Fathers when you leave here, leave this world? What are you going to tell them? What can you say to Thomas Jefferson when you have that opportunity to meet him face to face and look him in the eye? I'm sorry. I just didn't have the guts to stand up there with those people. Or you say, I did everything that I can do. I stood up there and I tried. Maybe it didn't work, but I tried. I put everything into, I put my heart and soul into saving the Constitution and standing for liberty. That's what I hope I'm going to be man enough to say, have the opportunity to say when the time comes. And I hope that some of you will think about that when this is all over with.
Did you want to say anything, Bill?
Yeah. A little brief.
Bill Keebler here.
Sorry. I work with a lot of law enforcement agencies out of Stockton, Tooele. I work with Search and Rescue. And Cope here, Miss Cope Reynolds. I also was at the Bundy Ranch for about 2 weeks. And there was a lot of people there. We had made a lot of good friends up there, and a lot of productive things were done. But like Mr. Reynolds said, if it hadn't been for the militia, there probably wouldn't be a Bundy. And there won't be a Mr. Finicum if we don't stand by him. That's what we are for, and that's what we're trained to do, and that's what we teach people to do. Mr. Reynolds and myself are both prior military. I have a little bit of law enforcement, been too long ago, but we're here for the communities. Even though I live in Tooele, Utah, you're part of my community. Now, I was a wrangler for a long time. I love riding horses, so I have a soft spot for the ranchers and stuff. But again, we're here to defend the Constitution and to support the local sheriffs. I've been supporting ours up here in Tooele County and some other places. We are here to, if we can't be here physically to support people, we'll support you morally or with sources or resources, such as the people up in Oregon. We're trying to work with to help them, but we can't be everywhere. That's why we try to pull our sources together. But I came up here to talk to him today, and that if this community calls on us, I will be here. Lock, stock, barrel, and all. That's why I'm here today. That's why this gentleman's here today. I stood with him in Washington, stood with him in Arizona, stood with him at the Bundy Ranch. So if any of y'all need us, we're here for you.
One last thing is that since I wrote that letter and made this line in the sand, there has been a lot of our state officials that have contacted me. As I go down to the state capitol in Phoenix, we've got a lot of county commissioners that are standing behind me, some state representatives that are standing behind us. There are state representatives that are, in fact, I'm going to be talking with a state representative out of Washington in the morning, another one. And so there's a lot of political people that are willing to support us. You're not alone in the political realm. I just want you to know that. I cannot believe how many of the commissioners and stuff, I don't know how they even found out about me and stuff. But they will, when they see this, the people will lead, they will get on board.
Thanks, LaVoy. Thanks to you fellas.
All right, I'm going to step in here for just a second and introduce you to the state attorney, who has some comments about what we're talking about here. Here he is.
You know, it isn't working. Public land policies in the country are not working. But the question is really, what do you do about it? What's the most effective way of going about it? And, you know, you've been hearing from people this evening that they're suggesting one way to deal with it. Now, I don't think that's the best way to deal with it.
The other way hasn't worked for years.
Well, I agree.
So what is the other way?
Well, there are other things. There's a limit to what I can do. I'm a lawyer, okay? And it isn't the problem. It can be part of the solution.
But what is the other way?
For 30 years we've had this thing.
Wait a minute.
Okay, look, I didn't come down to argue.
I know, but you said his way is not the way. What's the other way?
Well, there are a number of other ways.
Name us one.
Okay, go into the courts. Go into the administrative agencies.
Right, or have the courts.
Look, you know, you don't have to agree with that. You guys have got your own free agency. You can do whatever you want. This gentleman's right. These guys are right. You can do whatever you want. This is a free country. But you need to understand that there are consequences.
For freedom?
Look, I'm saying that there are consequences.
It's all we're trying to do is defend our right. We have a right.
I'm not arguing with you.
But everything is just
all I'm saying is you have your choice. to do it the way you want to do it. You can call it civil disobedience, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But you have that choice. But you need to understand that when you make that choice, you live with the consequences.
Maybe it's time they understand that they live with the consequences of the choices they make instead of us.
I agree with you. That's my job. My job is to push back. I have to do it within the law. I don't have a choice. That's what I've got to do.
All right, let me break in here again real quick. At this point, the state attorney was handed a copy of the Constitution. There's the law.
Yeah.
Do it within that. Just shortly after this, the state attorney finished up his comments and left, and left his copy of the Constitution laying on the table.
They'll stand up. They'll do it themselves.
Okay, what do you want the state to do?
Tell them.
Push back.
To do what's right. No, this is what
No, what do you want the state to do, sir?
Okay. This is where I leave the line in.
And who do you want to do it?
I want the states.
Who's the state? You want the
The
governors?
state of Utah, the state of Arizona, is say, these are Utah public land. See, none of the rights go away. All the rights exist. They're already established. Your natural rights. The hunting right is already being administered correctly, except for the federal game wardens that are starting to pop up around here. So the hunting is already managed properly. That's property. Okay, you have the proper law enforcement upon these public lands. There are county sheriffs. They're already there. There should be no federal law enforcement. Okay, the access rights.
Law enforcement is another issue that I'm dealing with.
Okay, right. And so the rights, the grazing rights are established, the hunting rights are established. These rights don't change when the state says, this is now Utah state public land. All the rights remain. The federal government is out of it. See, I can pick up the phone, I can get hold of my county sheriff. I can pick up the phone and get actually hold of the county commissioner and our state representatives. I can get hold of Barack Obama. I can't get hold of him.
Let me ask you this. If the state said that, how does that help you?
Okay, now let's be clear about this. Public lands are public lands. But it doesn't, see, I'm not training one landlord for another.
No, but
for example,
my question is, if the state says that,
and
who do we say it to?
Okay,
Congress, the president, who do we say it to?
Don't ask for permission. Just act that way. Don't go through a court. Don't go through a law. You're the state of Utah.
Okay, what if the state of Utah sent them a letter like you sent them a letter? Okay, how does that help you?
Where's your range ponds? There's no range ponds. The county commissioners will manage this. You know, I can talk to my county commissioner. I can say, if you force me like this, I can get together, we can vote, and we can recall. You see the difference? It's the power of recall. The power of republican, of a representation. That's the difference. We have a republic. They are accountable to us. I can vote them out. That's the difference.
What if they don't agree?
We don't ask
We had, did England agree with us?
Right.
We're not going to negotiate.
Okay, I'm trying to find out where you want to go with this.
To the very limit. The very limit.
What does that mean?
My life. I will stand on that. I'm not trading one landlord for another. The state doesn't own that grass, the county doesn't own that grass, and the federal government doesn't own the grass. I own it. I bought it. But I don't own the mineral rights. I don't own the hunting rights. I don't own the access right. And so I'm willing to stand there, even if it's by myself, saying, I'm going to live as a free man and ranch on this ranch. I'm not going to pay the federal government. I'm going to pay the county not a grazing fee, a production tax, because I want to support my county. They don't own it any more than the federal government owns it. But guess what? The richest uranium in the whole world exists out on the Arizona Strip. I've been on those mines. I've been on those drilling rigs. And they've already seized the mineral rights. And the county is so addicted to the pelt. My county commissioner, Mr. Finicum, you got to stop. They'll take away our pelt. County commissioner, if you had issued some mining permits, there'd be so much money flowing upward in taxes, you wouldn't need the pelt. And guess what? He talked about the logging being shut down. When a man is busting his butt in the mine, busting his butt in the forest and the ranches, there's a self-esteem that comes and an integrity that comes. And the community changes. But when they're on welfare, when there's no jobs, when they're being crushed,
I should have known better than to ask you a question. I should have known better.
Anyway.
The county manages this, it's the people manage it, that's who, it's the people, it's not government, it's not federal government, the people run this country.
Local. Well, the problem is when you talk about, do the federal or do the lawsuit and that. We've tried that, and it's just like Phil Lyman. He stepped in that courthouse, and everybody was against. Everything went against him. They didn't present all the evidence, the right evidence, and all that.
I'm not going to get into it.
Okay, well, that's fine, but that's our experience with the law.
It's a mouse against the elephant. You cannot win with the government. You have no chance unless you get everybody
In the courtroom.
in the courtroom at once.
But basically, the government itself is a conflict of interest. I mean, just the way that it is, like what Mr. Finicum was saying. We have the three branches that are right there together.
The government has its own agenda, and we are not part of it.
So as far as going
That
the
much I do
judicial
know
route,
going
like
on.
you're saying, it
Feels pointless. It feels
Yeah.
like the only thing we can get their attention with is rebellion.
Well, and I understand that. I hear your frustrations. I know what you're doing. I don't.
Yeah, but are you going to lose your way of life, your job?
I'll say my last thing and I won't say anything.
I didn't call on you.
I do appreciate your efforts. And the state needs to win. If the state fails to do this, you will have a rebellion in the state. So why can't
what are we doing
the
about it?
federal government to please stop? Or the state just needs to do it and quit asking. Quit fighting in your court. Just do it.
Do it.
Did they get out of your way when you wrote the letter? Did they leave you alone? Did that do it?
Actually, I talked to Redcons, and the command from on high is give Finicum room. So give. They are drawing with. They said we've got 3 more federal rangers hired for him right now, but make sure wherever he's at, you stay a long ways away from him.
Well, that's working then.
We went through a scenario here, Grand Canyon Trust, concerns by Mary O'Brien. Now, I want you to think about this, Tony. These are the people who have the permit and pay for the permit and make their living with the permit, and they're getting 15 minutes. The lady who doesn't live here, doesn't exist here, hopefully
Gets an hour and a half.
gets an hour and 45 minutes.
We went to a meeting 4 or 5 years ago and they started squeezing us, and the Forest Service said, look, if you get one more cow in the wrong pasture, we're going to fine you, we're going to trespass you, and we will start taking your permit away. I said, hang on, you can't. You got to give us a chance to remedy that, because you don't know if the wind blew a tree over on the fence, or a bow hunter left the gate open, or an elk shed hunter cut the fence. There's a million reasons that cow could be on the other side. And I told the beaver office, I said, look, I work with 3 agencies, the Powell District, the one out of Panguitch, one out of Escalante, and the beaver one, and you guys can't. Those guys all give us 2 or 3 days to go take care of our problem, find out what happened, get our cows back to you. They said, nope, you get one more out, you're getting trespassed.
Okay. Right now, I don't know what Sean said about Bundy, but before the Bundy standoff, we had BLM thugs, is what I'm going to call them, running around Wayne County, harassing people like you cannot believe. And after the Bundy standoff, you don't hardly see one of them.
Thank you. Those federal law enforcement don't have any jurisdiction here. In fact, if they try and get a hold of me, I'm not going to comply, and I'm going to say, you call my county sheriff and get him here, and I'll respect him, but you have the same authority as I do.
yeah.
See, I've got his constitution there. I'd like to invite all of you, I'd like to challenge all of you to read this and understand it. Read it, pray about it, understand what you're fighting for. Everybody says that's unconstitutional, I can't do this and I can't do that. read it and know what you're talking about. These men right here take an oath to uphold this Constitution, and we need to hold them to that oath. They're a good sheriff will act by this, and he'll do everything that you need him to do, as long as he abides by this oath. You know why the BLM quit doing what they were doing? One of you talking about today? Because there was action. You remember the CB craze of the 70s and early 80s? Everybody had a CB. They were everywhere. That was the single biggest instance of civil disobedience in the history of mankind, when we decided we didn't need no stinking license. We're not going to do this anymore. And everybody got one, and they got overwhelmed. If somebody comes and locks your gate or takes your cows, everyone in this room needs to be there for you. And if that's not enough, we'll bring more from other places. And we can do this. We can do it non-violently. We can do it peacefully and do it right. Their choice. And by the numbers, one guy, two guys, five guys may not be enough. There's 50 people in this room. And when we have that kind of numbers show up, things will happen. The BLM guys quit coming up because there was action, because people got out and said, we will not comply. We had enough. And I was hoping the guy who just left would stick around for a minute.
He's scared.
I understand that he's a good guy and he's trying to help, as you said. I get that. But the point is, sometimes these guys that try to help don't fully understand what the law and what liberty and what freedom is. That's the problem. Yes, they're trying to help. They stand on our side. So let's see what we can do within the law. I tried to give him the law and he left it.
A government employee has difficulty with that reasoning, though.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah, that's
He's a lawyer, so he's probably got it.
Okay, never mind. Okay. But that's, when you talk to your friends, you talk to your neighbors, and they say, yeah, we need to do this, and we need to do that. But everybody, I'm not advocating breaking the law. I'm not advocating being an outlaw here. But I am advocating supporting this as your law. And when you want to stay within the law, stay within what this thing says. There are laws out there that are unconstitutional. There are laws out there that are illegal. But they're laws because somebody long down the line said that they were, and we abide by them. And when the federal government says something, everybody jumps because it's the federal government. That needs to stop. That's why we're in the position we're in now. How hard is that to understand? These people need to understand that the federal government. Oh, I'm a federal ranger. Can I assist you in something? No thanks. We got it. Okay. I'm out of here. Instead of, you have to do this because I'm a federal government. Here's a piece of paper that says you have to do that. No, you don't. Stand together. Make it work.
What you guys did at Bundy was a good thing.
Thank you.
It saved a lot of trouble. I think you really turned a cornerstone in America.
I hope so. Yes, sir.
Appreciate that.
So, well, I just think we're already paying dues to these organizations that should be representing us if they're not.
Well, if they're not representing you, then you need to get an organization that'll represent you.
I'd like to make one last comment. I understand what you're saying. I understand the desire to create an organization, fund it and stuff. But I hear you saying, and then when we meet with the Forest Service, then when we meet with the BLM, we'll have some backing behind it. You will never get more public opinion than the East Coast and the West Coast. You'll never have a majority. I say, and this is just me, and this is just where I'm standing, I'm not going to go to the BLM. I'm not going to go to the Forest Service. I'll go to you if I was here. I go to my county commissioner. That's my line. That's my line in the sand. I'm no longer going to try to get an attorney to represent me to the BLM or represent me to the Forest Service. I might get one to represent me to you or to, in a court of law here in a county. That's the government. But as long as we keep going to them, keep acknowledging them, then we give them power because we acknowledge them. They want us to come to them and petition us. It doesn't matter if it's legislative or judicially. As long as we keep coming to them, we recognize that you have the power, you have the right. Until you draw that line and say the power and the right rest with you, with the governor, it's a losing fight. That's just me, but that's my line where I'm standing.
Well, I know it's been so many court cases and so much money thrown at things, you know, but like you're saying, now they have got a different way maybe of approaching them, but if I was those Cedar City guys, the way I read the Constitution, if you own that grass out there, and that bunch of horses are stealing it, taking your grass, I should go to the sheriff and tell him, look, that bunch of horses are taking my grass, remove them. And I think the sheriff could go right out and round those horses up and take them right over and tell them federal people, here's your horses. They was eating so-and-so's grass, and I don't think there'd be a word said about it. What do you think?
I don't disagree with you at all, but I will tell you guys, if we stand by and we let Phil Lyman go to federal prison, we have a whole bunch of elected officials double thinking their willingness to take on.
What do we need to do there? Stop. He needs to stand somewhere. Give us something to stand behind him.
If he will stand, we're waiting for Phil to stand. I know I've talked to him. I know other people that personally talked to him. Say, Phil, will you stand? All you have to say is, federal government, no. And people will stand, but he hasn't quite drawn that line. He's close. But if Phil Lyman say, I'm going to quit fighting this in a federal court, and I'm not going to go, I will be there. These two men will be here. People across, he will be there. I know these guys will be there. They will be there. But we can't go until he stands.
Where do we stand behind him? That's what
it goes back to what we were saying before. We can't stand for you, but we'll damn sure stand with you. Like he's saying here, he needs to make that stand.
The biggest problem with government is they lie.
No.
Yeah.
From what I understand, Ford was saying that because he didn't use...
Another example of this action we were talking about, I belong to another group, it's a constitutional task force called Liberty for All. Some of you may have heard about it in the news. There was a veteran that had filled out some paperwork wrong, had a stroke, and anyway, through a series of misinformation, miscommunication, he was deemed unfit to take care of his own affairs. The VA literally sent a man to his house to collect his firearms, and was going to take his firearms away. Liberty for All showed up at his house, and they left at like 4 o'clock in the morning. These are people that stand. They didn't leave at 8 o'clock in the morning to see what they could do afterwards. They left at 4 o'clock in the morning to be there to stand for this veteran. They literally locked arms, made a ring around the house, and wouldn't let him in. Now, this man stood up here a while ago and said, you can't win against the federal government. We have won against the federal government. We've won in Texas, 30-year battle, but the rancher won. We won at Bundy. We won at the mine in Oregon. We'll win here. After it was all said and done, the VA left. The man's still there. He has his guns. Nothing's changed. Nobody went to jail. Nobody got in trouble. But the federal government backed down and went home because we stood. That's all it takes.
And they know we will again.
You guys are willing, Commissioner Lyman called you to be down there to protect him, right?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. He didn't want to hear from me because I'm not from Utah. I tell you what, I'm from America. This is the federal government. I'm as much a part of this as y'all are. I'll come up here from Arizona and fight with you. I went to Washington to fight with them. This is an American thing. It's not a Utah thing. It's every rancher in this damn country. All over the West. I hope there's more meetings just like this going on in every state in the country right now.
It's already in
especially in the West.
It's happening in Nevada, Arizona, Utah. This ain't the only, this incident is not the only one going on right now. Y'all's problem, stuff y'all are going through, y'all aren't the only state. Him and I have contact with people all over this country. We're hearing the same pattern, the same story.
Your stand, what you asked was, would these guys stand? Since I announced it on radio and I posted on YouTube, from here, in fact, I've had 2 calls from Michigan right now since I've been sitting here. People will come across this country and they will stand with you. Thousands will come. You guys will not be alone. Organized, unorganized individuals, they love this country and they say, where can I stand to help hold up freedom? And when they see a rancher stand up, they say, there, I can go there. and I can stand there. It's because they love their country, they love this freedom, and they see that we're losing it. So they will come.
Yeah, as soon as
You gotta have more.
he told me this morning.
People's gotta stand up more. Waiting on you.
You guys don't lose your momentum after this. Everybody's fired up tonight and all excited about this. Don't lose it as soon as you walk out the door. Don't go out there this weekend and go hunting and mess around and start thinking about it and say, well, now I'm not sure. Don't lose this momentum. Stick together. You don't have to meet here. Meet together in other places. And hold on to this momentum. We need it.
I'll tell you one thing I would like to see, but I hate to tell anybody what to do. But I think as a county, if all the ranchers in this county, every one of us, just do just exactly what Brother Finicum's done. Now, I forget names that quick and does something, but what LaVoy's done, I don't think there'd be one thing they'd do to us. But if we all went down together, what are we out? We ain't going to have nothing left anyway. All you got to do is go look at the BLM chart. She went just like this for 40 years.
That also shows the rest of the country that we stood.
What's that?
That shows the rest of the country that we stood.
Yeah, well, that's right. We might even make history. I don't know, but I don't care about that. But I do think that.
Well, I can tell you one thing. If you're gonna do it, you better all do it. Because you're going to be pitted against each other, and there you're going to be paying your grading fee, and you ain't, and he's going to be pissed, and you ain't.
That's a fact.
So if you're going to do it, everybody in this room better to sign up and say, I'm either going to do it or I'm not going to do it, because it's not going to be an equal, fair thing for you to not pay yours and for you to pay yours.
We're paying it.
What I'm getting at is what you're getting at is just what's going on with Keith down there right now. His permit, he's got 3 people on his permit, and they're titling on him BLM. So, I mean, it's not the. What I'm getting at is, if you've got 10 people on a permit, and there's 3 guys that decide they're not going to do it, and the other guys, you're going to have them pitted against the guys they're going to be on the BLM side.
You're wrong there. I got one guy with 80 acres in the middle of my permits, the one titling on.
No, it ain't. Sorry to tell you that, but it ain't.
It ain't.
No.
Well, I'd like to say something on grazing fees. My understanding is 80% of that's supposed to come back to the permit. It's 80% to the range for improvements. It's not theirs. It's supposed to come back to the thing. So that leaves 20% there of grazing that's supposed to go somewhere. But that's not the point either. The grazing fee, it ought to be paid to this county right here. We're in this county. This county should
take it.
Yeah.
If we offer to.
Well, what I'm getting at is this: if you're gonna do it, you need to be a group. You can't just go 2 or 3 of you start.
Here, I got a comment.
I'll let you pay it or none of you pay it.
I went.
I want to second what you're saying, because
he knows that.
You know, when you start thinking about this, you better look down in deep, because don't stand and then sit down. Realize you've got children, you've got wives, you've got dreams, you've got hopes. But I'll leave you with this story. 2 men, nobody died in the conflict at Trenton when Washington made his first victory when he crossed the Delaware that New Year's Eve. But he lost 2 men. 2 men froze to death without even getting to burn their powder. They had hopes. They had dreams. They probably had wives, maybe children. You know they had fathers and mothers. Was their dreams any less dear than ours? Were their lives any less valuable than ours? If we're not willing to pay the price that they paid, do we deserve freedom? I don't think so. It came with a dear price. It will cost a dear price to return it back. But this is my daughter. You know, I put her at risk. What I'm doing. I have 8 daughters. I know the cost that it might cost, but life is short. We don't have to live, so we have to stand. We have to stand.
Well, if we stand like that, if we all stood as a group, I don't think we'd put any of the pressure on the sheriff. He'd have the whole group of us stand, and the whole county would stand. The whole county stood. In my